everyone, I am the little teacher of Study Hub number 8 and we will discuss all about the learner-centered teaching, foundations, and characteristics. But before we proceed to our main introduction, I will first introduce my group mates and their respective topics. So I will discuss the characteristics of learner-centered teaching. Roy Carpio will discuss about teacher-centered philosophies and learner-centered philosophies. Lou Ryan, Hill, and Fernanda will discuss about resistance to change, managing the shift. And we have also Jainal Patricia will discuss about the dimensions of learner-centered teaching. And lastly, Wilbert Piala will present our main introduction, objectives, conclusion, and overall takeaways.
Good day everyone, I am Wilbert Piala from the Study Hub 8, Member 2. Today, I would like to introduce to you our topic, the learner-centered teaching, foundation and characteristics. In the first half of the 20th century, a new classroom, pedagogy, and instructional strategies are involved in selecting and implementing strategies that align with the diverse needs of learners, fostering engagement and collaboration, and facilitating the realization of students to the full potential. The student is an active participant in the teaching and learning activities. Students' responsibilities include actively listening to others, thinking, making comments, and discussing ideas, asking questions, reading course material, observing, and striving for understanding. Recognizing and accommodating diverse learning style, preference, and abilities ensures that educators address individual differences and among learners. Adopting a learner-centered instruction approach is essential because it focuses on students' learning experiences, making them active participants, fostering deeper, long-term learning, and a learner-centered instruction. A learner-centered instruction involves a continuous effort by teachers to understand how students learn, enabling the effective application and adaptation of teaching strategies that cater to individual learning requirements. Just a reminder everyone to listen and pay attention to the discussion and take note to the necessary details. Learning outcomes for this discussion. Number 1. Differentiate learner-centered teaching from other approaches, applying this understanding across diverse teaching areas. Number 2. Justify the necessity, the shift of teacher-centered to learner-centered teaching, integrating a philosophical foundations, teaching principles, and contemporary research. Number 3. Analyze and discuss the various roles undertaken by teachers in the context of learner-centered teaching and learning.
Hello again everyone, I am Brymer M. Kapeng and we will discuss all about the characteristics of learner-centered teaching. So number 1, learner-centered teaching engages students into the hard, messy work of learning. So engaging students in the hard, messy work of learning means that they are actively involved in grappling with complex concepts, solving problems, and making connections. They are encouraged to ask questions, explore different perspectives, and engage in critical thinking. This approach fosters a deeper understanding of the subject matter and promotes the development of essential skills such as problem solving, collaboration, and communication. By engaging students in the hard, messy work of learning, learner-centered teaching creates an environment that is conducive to growth and development. It encourages students to take risks, makes mistakes, and learn from them. It nurtures a sense of curiosity and love for learning as students become active participants in their own education. Number 2, learner-centered teaching includes explicit skill instruction. So number 2 means that by explicitly teaching skills such as critical thinking, problem solving, and hypothesis generation, learner-centered teachers empower their students to become independent learners. explicit skill instruction is essential for students to master the material in any discipline. It enables them to think critically, evaluate evidence, and analyze arguments. These skills are not innate, they need to be cultivated and nurtured. By explicitly teaching these skills, learner-centered teachers provide students with a solid foundation upon which they can build their knowledge and understanding. Number 3. Learner-centered teaching encourages students to reflect on what they are learning and how they are learning it. So it means that by reflecting on their learning, students become more aware of their strengths and weaknesses, enabling them to make informed decisions about their study strategies. Another important aspect of learner-centered teaching is challenging student assumptions about learning. This approach encourages students to question their preconceived notions about how they learn best and explore alternative methods. By challenging these assumptions, students become more open-minded and adaptable, which are essential skills for lifelong learning. Number 4. Learner-centered teaching motivates students by giving them some control over learning processes. So in this case, learner-centered teachers actively seek out ethically responsible ways to share power with their students. This means involving students in decision-making processes, allowing them to have a say in what and how they learn, and valuing their input and perspectives, and also by giving students some control over their learning. Learner-centered teaching fosters a sense of ownership and responsibility. Students become active participants in their own education rather than passive recipients of information. This not only increases their motivation and engagement, but also helps them develop important skills such as critical thinking, problem solving, and self-reflection. Number 5. Learner-centered teaching encourages collaboration. In a learner-centered classroom, the teacher acts as a facilitator guiding students through the learning process rather than simply delivering information. The focus is on creating a community of learners where students feel comfortable sharing their ideas, asking questions, and working together to solve problems. Collaboration is encouraged through group work, discussions, and projects that require students to work together and learn from one another. Learner-centered teachers work to develop structures that promote shared commitments to learning. This means creating a classroom culture where students feel valued and respected, and where their voices are heard. It involves setting clear expectations and goals and providing opportunities for students to reflect on their learning and set their own learning objectives. Collaboration in a learner-centered classroom goes beyond simply working together on a task. It involves active participation, critical thinking, and the ability to listen and respond to others' ideas. Through collaboration, students develop important skills such as communication, problem solving, and teamwork, which are essential for success in the 21st century.
Good day everyone. Again, this is Wilbert Diana. Today, I am going to discuss the philosophical perspective. But before we proceed to our main topic, let us have first a brief summary about the previous topic that talks about learner-centered teaching. So as we heard from the previous reporter, the characteristics of learner-centered teaching is that it promotes active engagement, critical thinking, and self-directed learning. It recognizes the unique needs and preferences of each learner and aims to create an environment that fosters autonomy, individualized instruction, and collaboration. By adopting learner-centered teaching practices, educators and future educators can create a more meaningful and effective learning experience for students. So now let's proceed to our topic, which is all about philosophical perspective. The shift from teacher-centered to learner-centered teaching represents a significant transformation in educational philosophy and practices. In traditional teacher-centered approaches, the teacher is often the primary source of information and the focus is on delivering content to students. However, the move towards the learner-centered teaching marks a departure from this model, emphasizing the active involvement of students in learner-centered process. Teacher-centered philosophies. Essentialism. Essentialism is an American philosophy of education which begins in 1930s and 1940s and was introduced by William Begley. Essentialism tries to instill all students with the most essential or basic academic knowledge and skills and character development. In the essentialist system, students are required to master a set of body of information and basic techniques for their grade level before they are promoted to the next higher grade. The content gradually moves towards more complex skills and detailed knowledge. Essentialists hope that when students leave school, they will not only possess the basic knowledge and skills, but they will also have disciplined, practical minds capable of applying lessons learned in school in the real world. Essentialism is different from what Dewey would like to see in the school. Students in this system would sit in a row and be taught in the masses. The student would learn passively by sitting in their desk and listening to the teacher. Next is perennialism. Perennialism is a teacher-centered philosophy that focuses on the values associated with the reason. It considers knowledge as enduring, seek everlasting truth, and views principle of existence as constant or unchanging. In perennialism, the teacher uses a subject and instruction-based format in which all students are treated the same and which the content is the focus. Perennialized teachers are not worried about the differentiation or individualism. Rather, they are focused on the teaching of universal truths to support intellectual above all else. In education, perennialism is the teaching of everlasting or evergreen ideas. Perennialism as a teacher-centered and subject-based approach is the opposite of progressivism, which focuses on the student's needs and experience in the current times. Rather, perennialism is focused on the development of the mind through theory and timeless principles that teach what it means to be human. Now let's proceed to the other part. Learner-centered philosophies. Progressivism. Progressivism is a student-centered philosophy that believes that ideas should be tested by experimentation, and learning comes from finding answers from questions. These philosophies value the scientific method of teaching, allows individuals to have their own beliefs, and promotes the interaction of students as valuable of the learning process. The proponents of this philosophy are William Kilpatrick and John Dewey. Progressivists believe that individuality, progress, and change are fundamental of one's education, believing that people learn best from what they consider most relevantly to their lives. Progressivists center their curricula on the needs, experiences, interests, and the ability of students. Progressivist teachers try making schools interesting and useful by planning lessons that provoke curiosity. In a progressivist school, students are actively engaged learning, and students interact with one another and develop social qualities such as cooperation and tolerance for different points of view. In addition, students solve problems in the classroom, similar to those that they will encounter in their everyday lives. Humanism. Humanism affirms the importance of seeing the whole person and appreciating the uniqueness of each individual. Humanists believe that each individual is inherently good and has free will, has the ability and desires to self-actualize, and that their personal subjective reality is valuable. Humanist teachers value both the education and emotional well-being of their students, ensuring that their basic human needs are met and that their unique perspectives are considered when making decisions. Students are given opportunities for self-directed learning and self-evaluation that provides them with knowledge and how they learn and where they could improve. These tools motivate them to seek out new learning opportunities through their lives in order to achieve their fullest potential. Hope you enjoy this video. Thank you.
Good day everyone, I am Marian Helen Carnado. Before we proceed to our main topic, let us have a brief summary about the previous topic, which is the paradigm shift from teacher-centered to a learner-centered teaching. So we learned the different teacher-centered philosophy, which is the essentialism. So we learned from the previous reporter that essentialism focuses on the transmission of essential knowledge and skills to the student. So it is asserted that there is a core set of information that all students should learn regardless of their individual interests or abilities. So we have also the paradigmism. On the other hand, it emphasizes the enduring ideas and truth that is shaping human civilization. Paradigmism teachers believe that there are universal principles and concepts that are timeless and relevant to all students. So we also learn about the learner-centered philosophy, including the practice. It is a learner-centered philosophy that focuses on the idea that education should be relevant to the needs and interests of the learner. Also, it emphasizes hand-on learning problems and critical thinking. We also have the humanism. It emphasizes the development of a good person. It recognizes the unique qualities and potential of each learner and seek to foster their personal growth and self-actualization. So now let's proceed to our main topic, which is the resistance to change management. So it said here that the human nature can't track any change, but change is inevitable. So the reason why people or students resist to change is because it's not any easy transitions to fear of the unknown. Also, student has a learner-centered approaches. So we have 4 common reasons why students resist the learner-centered. So number 1 is a learner-centered approach on more work. It tells here that the approaches are more work for faculty, means that it requires more work because they prioritize turning education to individual student needs and fostering activity participation. It entails creating diverse learning materials, providing a varied assessment and adapting teaching strategy to accommodate different learning styles and needs. Number 2 is a learner-centered approach or more threatening students. Students resist the approaches because they are afraid, because they challenge traditional power dynamics in education. So in learner-centered approach, students take more responsibility for their learning, which can unsettle educators. It also customized to more control over the learning process. So also teachers required to adapt their rules from being a primary source of knowledge to faculty, facilitators or guides, which may be unsettling for some educators. Emphasize collaboration or critical thinking and engineering-based learning. So which can challenge deeply implied educational to practice and believe themselves. So the number 3 is a learner-centered approach involves loss, and it tells here that the student take up approach to new place where the responsibility and ownership for what does and for does not happen. Also, students resist about their loss and longing for a supply way this used to be. But it's the student understand and take quality and good for them and to us and foster our personal development. But sometimes the feeling of loss is an emotional one, and it's manifests itself as the resistance. Number 4 is a learner-centered approach, maybe beyond student. It's promoting active engagement, individualized learning, ownership, or learning critical thinking. It's also collaboration and the application of knowledge in meaningful ways. They aim to create dynamic learning. And the environments that cater to the diverse needs and ability of a student is preparing them for success in the ever-changing world. And now let's proceed to the second, the source of faculty resistance. So the source of faculty resistance is tells here that the colors raise a preliminary from the two sources, and it finds the approaches enormously threatening. Also, in the learner-centered approaches, it tests teachers' level of self-confidence. So it takes us away from the exclusive relevance and move us to unfamiliar domain and learning skills. For many faculties, these are radical ideas and they raise quite legitimate questions. So the faculty move more in their thinking about learning and the kind of teaching and that promotes it. And also we have a 5 strategy in dealing with the faculty resistance. So number 1, be mindful of politics. Number 2, use the autonomy of your classroom. 3, do not seek to convert messages. Number 4, documents that impact of your objects. Number 5, find like-minded cultures. So student and faculty resistance will keep us honest about what we are doing and why, because it also helps us to see the possibility. And a lot of us tells that student resist is faded and it's gone well before colleges.
So, hi everyone, I am Jonah Patricia A. Before we proceed to our main topic, let us have first a brief summary about the previous topic, which talks about the resistance to change. So, according to the reporter, resistant to change, managing the shift is a natural response in the context of learning-centered teaching. She talks about some approaches that help us to gain knowledge about the learning-centered teaching, and by understanding the reasons behind this resistance and providing support to teachers, it is possible to manage the shift towards learners-centered approaches and create a more effective and engaging learning environment for the students. Now we will going to tackle or discuss about the dimensions of learning-centered teaching. And dimensions of learning-centered teaching, we have 5. The first is the functions of content. The second is the role of the instructor. The third is the responsibility for the learning. The fourth is the purposes and processes of assessment. And the last one is the balance of the power. So, the first dimensions of learning-centered teaching, or the dimensions of learning-centered teaching, is the functions of content. content. It talks about how the instructor and the students use a content to build the knowledge base level to which students engage content. Instructor allows students to memorize the content. Instructor encourages students to transform and reflect on most the content to make their own meaning out of it. The second dimensions of learning-centered teaching is the role of the instructor. So the instructor is the one goes beyond transmitting the knowledge as they take on the responsibility of facilitating activities and learning experiences for the learners. At the same time, learners take on a more proactive role influencing course content and activities and actively reflecting on their learning. In this case, the instructor or the teacher and the students or the learner will be more effective when it comes to teaching and learning, because in this kind of dimensions of learning-centered teaching, the instructor and the learner is both reaching the goals. Then the third dimensions of learning-centered teaching is the responsibility for the learning. It means the responsibility for learning should rest with the students. Instructors assume all the responsibility for the students' learning, so the instructor is the one who provides content to memorize for his or her learner and does not require the students to create their own meaning in the content. In this case, the instructor and the students must have their own responsibility for learning in order for them to be responsible in their teaching and learning. So the flow of teaching or learning is clear and knowledgeable. So the fourth is the purposes and processes of assessment and dimension learning-centered teaching. The methods of purposes and processes of assessment is to personalize the learning outcomes by permitting mistakes and allowing students to learn from them. As I said earlier, in the learning-centered environments, the teaching search to understand what students know and how they know it. Then assessment is the systematic basis for making inferences about learning and development of the student. It is the process of defining, selecting, collecting, analyzing, interpreting, and using information to increase students' learning and development. And the last is the balance and power. The balance of powers shifts so the teacher shares some decisions about course with the students. An essential component, flexibility of course policies, assessment methods, learning methods, and deadlines. So the teacher mandates all policies, deadline, or teacher does not adhere to policies. So teachers is flexible on most cross policies, assessment methods, learning methods, deadline, and teacher always adheres to what teacher has agreed to with the students.
In summary, learner-centered teaching is a different way of teaching that puts students at the center. It means students are active in their learning. Teachers guide instead of just telling, and everyone works together. This method makes learning deeper and more lasting. The change from the traditional teaching to learner-centered teaching is like a moving from teachers talking a lot to helping students learn by doing. It gets students more interested and responsible for their own learning. It also respects that everyone learns in their own way. Different teaching philosophies shows this stuff. Some focus on tradition and a fixed way of teaching, while others value flexibility, relevance, and individual growth. Research supports that learner-centered teaching helps students learn better, but it's normal for students and teachers to feel unsure about this change. Some might resist because it seems like more work or it's different from what they know. Strategies to deal with the resistance include being aware of the challenges, giving some control to students, and finding support from others who think alike. So in takeaways, remember, learner-centered teaching is about changing how we see teaching and learning. It's about making learning more engaging, meaningful, and shared. It's a step forward, preparing students to learn on their own and adapt to whatever comes in their way. Thank you everyone. Hope you enjoyed this video.